The shadow came without warning. One moment, Alara Vance stood before the Aryan Council, her carefully practiced words flowing as she outlined the peace treaty that had taken months to draft. The next, those words died in her throat as powerful talons closed around her waist. We believe a shared future can only be built upon mutual. The rest of her sentence scattered to the winds as she was wrenched skyward, diplomatic papers spiraling from her hands like autumn leaves. The Aryan elders' shocked faces shrank below her, their urgent cries fading beneath the powerful beating of wings. Alara's screams tore from her lungs as the ground plummeted away. Her captor's grip tightened, firm enough to secure her, yet careful not to puncture her flesh. Through her terror, Alara registered this small mercy, along with the blazing sunset-colored feathers of the wings above her. "Release me," Alara shouted against the rushing wind. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? I am a diplomatic envoy." Her captor, a female Aryan warrior with fierce amber eyes and a crown of feathers that shifted between crimson and gold, didn't respond except to adjust her grip, securing Alara more firmly against her body. The warrior's skin was tan with intricate markings in deep indigo that trailed along her arms and across her face like living tattoos. Her muscular frame radiated heat against the chill mountain air. Alara's analytical mind, even in panic, cataloged details about her abductor. This wasn't one of the elders from the Peace Council. This younger warrior had observed from the shadows, saying nothing throughout the proceedings until making this inexplicable, outrageous move. They soared higher into the wind-scythed peaks, the jagged mountains that had long separated human settlements from Aryan territory. Alara had spent years studying this mysterious winged race, mastering their complex language with its trilling cries and subtle winged gestures. Yet nothing in her research had prepared her for this, being snatched mid-sentence by one of the very beings she dedicated her career to understanding. The warrior banked sharply, and Alara's stomach lurched. Below them, the landscape unfurled like a living tapestry. Ancient forests clinging to cliff faces, valleys carved by glacial rivers, and distant, misty waterfalls cascading from impossible heights. The wind-scythed range was breathtaking, but Alara was in no state to appreciate its beauty. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded, trying to twist in the warrior's grasp to see her face. "This is a direct violation of the diplomatic agreement. Your elders will." The warrior made a low, rumbling sound in her chest. Not quite a growl, not quite a purr, and spoke for the first time. Asterisk Sheriel talk Vasrian start. Alara's academic mind instantly engaged despite her fear. The phrase was an old Aryan, a ceremonial dialect rarely used in modern communication. She frantically searched her mental lexicon. Sheriel, to claim or mark. Talk, complete, final. Vasrian, sky or wind realm. Claimed in the sky realm? A final claiming in the air? What do you mean claimed? Alara shouted, her linguistic curiosity momentarily overriding her terror. No one claims diplomatic envoys. I represent the United Territories. This is an international incident. The warrior responded by climbing higher, the air growing thinner, forcing Alara to gasp for breath. Then, without warning, they plunged toward a mountain face. Alara squeezed her eyes shut, certain they would crash, but the last moment, the warrior executed a precise maneuver, gliding through a nearly invisible gap in the rocks and into a hidden canyon. A massive waterfall thundered down one side, creating a perpetual mist that nurtured lush, hanging gardens clinging to the vertical walls. The warrior circled once, then descended toward a large cave opening situated behind the cascading water. With a powerful beat of her wings, she sent them gliding through the liquid curtain and into darkness beyond. Inside, the roar of the waterfall muted to a constant, soothing background rhythm. As Alara's eyes adjusted, she saw they had entered a spacious cavern. Light streamed in from natural openings in the ceiling, illuminating a space that was unmistakably someone's home. The warrior set Alara down with surprising gentleness before landing a few paces away. For the first time, they faced each other directly. "Why have you brought me here?" Alara demanded, backing away and searching for any possible exit. "What do you want?" The warrior stretched her magnificent wings to their full span, easily 20 feet from tip to tip, before folding them against her back. She was taller than Alara by at least a head, her powerful frame somehow managing to appear both threatening and graceful. "I am Lyra," she said in the common tongue, her voice deep and melodic despite its rough edges. "You are safe here." "Safe?" Alara repeated incredulously. "You abducted me in front of your own elders. You've sabotaged months of diplomatic work. How exactly am I safe?" Lyra tilted her head, studying Alara as one might examine a curious artifact. Then, without answering, she moved to a carved stone shelf and retrieved something. When she returned, she extended her hand, offering what appeared to be dried meat and berries. "You will need strength," Lyra said simply. Alara's diplomatic training battled with her rising anger. "I don't want food. I want explanations. And then I want to return to the council to salvage what's left of these peace negotiations, if that's even possible after your intervention." Lyra's feathers ruffled slightly, the indigo markings on her skin seeming to darken. "You speak our tongue well, but understand little." She set the food down on a flat stone between them. "Eat." Then words. Alara weighed her options. The cave entrance was blocked by the waterfall, and even if she could slip past it, the drop beyond was deadly without wings. Any other exits were unknown to her. She was entirely at this warrior's mercy, and refusing simple cooperation seemed unwise. With a resigned sigh, Alara sat cross-legged near the offered food. "Fine, I'll eat, but then we talk properly." Lyra nodded once, her amber eyes never leaving Alara's face. The dried meat was surprisingly flavorful, seasoned with unfamiliar mountain herbs, and the berries burst with sweetness that helped calm Alara's frayed nerves. While she ate, she took stock of her surroundings. The cave was larger than she'd initially thought, extending back into the mountain. Natural light filtered in through several openings high above, supplemented by what appeared to be luminescent crystals embedded in the walls. The space was organized with obvious care. Sleeping furs arranged on a raised stone platform, weapons and tools displayed on carved racks, and personal items that hinted at Lyra's life. Colorful feathers from various birds, interesting stones, and small carvings. Most striking were the walls themselves. Ancient paintings covered much of the stone surface. Hunting scenes, aerial displays, and what appeared to be ceremonial gatherings. Some looked weathered by centuries, while others seemed newer. Had Lyra added to this historical record? As Alara finished eating, Lyra approached again, this time carrying a shallow bowl of water. She offered it without a word. "Thank you," Alara said cautiously, accepting the vessel. As she drank the cool, clean water, she noticed Lyra's intense focus on her movements, particularly on her hands and throat. The attention was unnerving, yet not entirely threatening. Setting the empty bowl aside, Alara squared her shoulders. "Now explain yourself. Why did you take me from the council?" Lyra settled across from her, powerful legs folded beneath her, wings adjusted for balance. Her proximity revealed fine details Alara hadn't noticed before. The way her feathers blended seamlessly with skin at certain points, how her ears tapered to subtle points, the tiny flecks of gold in her amber eyes. "You spoke of peace," Lyra said, her common tongue rough but understandable. "Pretty words. Empty, empty." Alara bristled. "I've spent years studying your culture, learning your language, crafting a treaty that respects both our people's needs." "Paper treaties." Lyra made a dismissive gesture with her hand. "Human promises break like dry branches. That's not fair." "This agreement." "Words cannot bind wind," Lyra interrupted. She leaned forward, her gaze intensifying. "Old ways stronger. Direct." "True." Alara frowned. "What old ways justify kidnapping?" Lyra's expression shifted subtly. "Not kidnapping. Shariel talk Vasrian." She placed a hand over her chest. "I choose you." The implication sent a jolt through Alara. Choose me? For what? Mine, Lyra said simply, as if this explained everything. A rush of conflicting emotions, indignation, confusion, and something unexpectedly like curiosity, flooded through Alara. People aren't possessions to be claimed. This isn't the Dark Ages. You can't just. A distant cry echoed outside the cave, causing Lyra to stiffen. She rose in one fluid motion, her wings half extended, head tilted toward the sound. Stay, she commanded, moving toward the waterfall entrance. Danger comes. Before Alara could respond, Lyra had slipped through the water curtain and vanished. Alone for the first time since her abduction, Alara immediately considered escape. She explored the cave rapidly, searching for another exit, but found only smaller chambers extending farther into the mountain. The only viable way out appeared to be through the waterfall. She approached it cautiously, feeling the spray on her face as she peered through the cascading water. Beyond lay the hidden canyon with its sheer walls and dizzying drop. Even if she could somehow climb down, she had no idea where she was relative to the Aryan settlement or human outposts. Another cry, closer this time, sent her retreating back into the cave. Whatever had alarmed Lyra was approaching. From her position deeper in the cavern, Alara could see winged shapes swooping through the canyon. Their movements seemed erratic, aggressive, nothing like Lyra's controlled precision. The markings on their wings were different too, darker, with patterns she didn't recognize from her studies of Aryan clans. Rival tribe? Or something else entirely? The sound of combat erupted outside. Screeches, the clash of weapons, and powerful wing beats creating gusts that disturbed the waterfall's flow. Alara pressed herself against the cave wall, her heart pounding. Despite her anger at Lyra, she found herself hoping the warrior was unharmed. The fighting intensified, moving closer to the cave entrance. Suddenly, a figure burst through the waterfall. Not Lyra, but another winged being with ashen feathers and a face contorted in hunger or rage. It spotted Alara immediately and lunged. Instinct took over. Alara grabbed the nearest object, the stone bowl she'd drunk from earlier, and hurled it at her attacker's head. The vessel shattered against its temple, momentarily stunning it. The creature recovered quickly, advancing with taloned hands outstretched. Human, it hissed in a corrupted version of the Aryan tongue. Soft meat, rich blood. Alara scrambled backward, searching desperately for a weapon. Her hand closed around a sharp stone as the creature lunged again. Before it could reach her, a blur of sunset feathers filled the cave entrance. Lyra slammed into the intruder with devastating force, driving it back toward the waterfall. They grappled violently, talons slashing, wings beating powerfully enough to create whirlwinds of dust and debris within the cave. Lyra fought with primal intensity, her movements fluid yet devastatingly precise. She drove her opponent back step by step until they both tumbled through the waterfall and out of sight. Alara rushed to the cave entrance, peering anxiously through the water. Outside, the sky was filled with battling winged forms. Lyra was engaged with not one, but two attackers now, somehow keeping them at bay despite the unfair odds. One managed to slash her wing, drawing a spray of crimson. Lyra's cry of pain echoed through the canyon. Without thinking, Alara grabbed one of Lyra's spears from the wall rack. She had no practical experience with such weapons, but years of theoretical study had given her knowledge of Aryan hunting techniques. Taking a deep breath, she positioned herself at the cave entrance and waited for an opening. When one of Lyra's attackers swooped close to the waterfall, Alara acted. She thrust the spear forward with all her strength, catching the creature by surprise. The spear head grazed its wing, tearing through membrane and feather. Not a fatal wound, but enough to unbalance it mid-flight. Lyra seized the advantage immediately, driving her talons into the wounded attacker before whirling to confront the second. The battle shifted in her favor, and moments later, Both assailants retreated, screeching in rage and pain as they fled into the distance. Lyra hovered outside the waterfall, her breathing heavy, blood flowing from several wounds. Her eyes found Alara, still clutching the spear, and widened in what might have been surprise. Then, with a powerful sweep of her wings, she returned to the cave, landing heavily on the stone floor. "You fought," she said, her voice a mixture of pain and what sounded remarkably like approval. "You're hurt," Alara responded, setting the spear aside and approaching cautiously. The slice in Lyra's wing looked serious, the vibrant feathers matted with blood. "Let me help." Lyra's gaze remained locked on Alara's face, searching for something. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her, as she gave a short nod and lowered her injured wing to provide better access. Alara's diplomatic training had included basic field medicine. She located Lyra's medical supplies, herbs, clean cloths, and salve stored in a recessed shelf, and set to work cleaning and binding the wounds. Lyra remained stoically silent throughout the process, though Alara could feel her occasional wince. "What were those creatures?" Alara asked as she carefully wrapped a bandage around the wing membrane. "They looked like Arions, but different." "Skyrakers," Lyra replied, her voice tight with pain. "Once Aryan, now corrupted. Hunt for pleasure, for pain. Enemies to all clans. I've never heard of them in any research. Elders hide truth from outsiders. From young ones, too." Lyra's amber eyes darkened. "Shame of our kind." Alara finished binding the wing and moved to clean a gash on Lyra's shoulder. "Why would they attack here?" "Smelled you," Lyra said simply. "Human scent carries on wind. Rare prize." A chill ran through Alara. "They came for me?" Lyra nodded once. "Would have torn you apart." Slowly, her hand reached up suddenly, catching Alara's wrist. In a gentle but firm grip. "You stayed. Could have fled while I fought." Alara met Lyra's intense gaze. "And go where?" "I don't know these mountains." "Could have hidden. Deep in cave. Instead, you fought." Lyra's grip tightened slightly. "Use my spear. Help me." "I didn't want you to die," Alara admitted, surprised by the truth in her own words. "Despite the fact that you abducted me." Lyra released her wrist and stood, testing her bandaged wing with a careful stretch. "Not abduction. Shariel talk Vasrian." "So you keep saying?" Alara sighed, gathering the medical supplies. "But you still haven't explained what that truly means." Lyra was silent for a long moment, watching as Alara methodically reorganized the herbs and salves. When she finally spoke, her voice had softened. In old times, when Arions sought life bond, they did not use weak words. She extended her uninjured wing partially, the gesture conveying something Alara couldn't quite interpret. They showed truth through action. Claim an open sky where lies cannot exist. Alara froze. "Life bond? You mean mating? Partnership?" She turned to face Lyra fully. "You abducted me as some kind of courtship ritual." Lyra's feathers ruffled, the sunset colors seeming to intensify. "Saw you many times before, watching from shadows while you learned our ways. Heard your voice speaking our tongue, clumsy at first, then flowing like clear water." A pause. "Something in you called to sky in me." The revelation left Alara speechless. This powerful, dangerous creature had been observing her, developing feelings for her, all while she remained oblivious. It was simultaneously disturbing and, in some inexplicable way, flattering. "Lyra," she said finally, choosing her words with diplomatic care, "in human culture, we get to know each other first. We talk, spend time together, establish trust before any claiming. Talk is surface," Lyra responded, moving closer. "Action reveals truth beneath. You showed truth when you fought beside me, when you healed my wounds." Her wing brushed lightly against Alara's arm. "Words can lie. Bodies speak true." Alara stepped back, needing distance to think clearly. "This is all happening too fast. Yesterday, I was preparing to present a peace treaty. Today I've been abducted, attacked, and informed I've been chosen for a life bond with someone I barely know." Lyra tilted her head, considering this. Time flows differently in mountains. But she made a gesture of concession with her uninjured wing. Will not force bond. Not our way. Action freely given or not given at all. The acknowledgement of her autonomy eased some of Alera's tension. Thank you. Can we start with you telling me why the traditional diplomatic channels weren't sufficient? Why resort to this ancient claiming ritual? Lyra moved toward the back of the cave and gestured for Alera to follow. In a smaller chamber, glowing crystals illuminated what appeared to be a personal shrine or meditation space. Ancient carvings covered the walls here, more detailed than those in the main cave. Treaties come, treaties go, Lyra said, running her fingers along one carving depicting winged figures and ground dwellers in conflict. For 10 generations, humans promise peace, then take more land, more resources. She pointed to another carving showing mountains being stripped bare. Words on paper do not change hearts. She turned to face Alera directly. But bond between two souls, one of sky, one of ground, that changes everything. Creates bridge no treaty can build. Alera studied the ancient carvings, recognizing elements of Aryan mythology she'd researched. You believe a personal bond would succeed where diplomacy has failed? Not just any bond. Lyra's voice lowered. You speak for your people. I am warrior born of eldest bloodline. Together, powerful symbol. The implications dawned on Alera slowly. This wasn't merely personal attraction, though that clearly played a part. Lyra had made a calculated political move, bypassing traditional channels for something more primal, more binding in Aryan culture. You're trying to create peace through a more ancient tradition than paper treaties, Alera said, understanding blooming. A living embodiment of alliance. Lyra nodded, seeming pleased by Alera's comprehension. Yes, Shariel Tak Vasrian is not just claiming, is offering self equally. Sky warrior and earth diplomat, together showing new path. The logic was both alien and compelling. Yet the execution, the abduction, remained problematic. Your intention may have merit, Alera said carefully, but your method has likely created a diplomatic crisis. The elders know old ways, Lyra interrupted. Will be angry, but will understand. Eventually, she stepped closer to Alera. Question is, can you understand? Alera met Lyra's intense gaze. Despite everything, she found herself intrigued rather than repelled. This fierce, direct being, operated by codes and beliefs so different from her own, yet there was an undeniable honor in her actions, misguided as they might seem by human standards. I'm trying to, she answered honestly. But understanding doesn't automatically mean agreeing or accepting. Fair, Lyra conceded. Night comes now. Rest. Tomorrow, if you wish, I return you to council. You would take me back? Just like that. Lyra's expression grew solemn. Told you, force is not our way. Claim is offered, must be freely accepted. Her wing drooped slightly. If rejected, must honor that too. The vulnerability in this admission stirred something unexpected in Alera. This powerful being who had snatched her from the ground and battled fearsome enemies was now offering her freedom, despite what it clearly cost her to do so. One night, Alera decided, I'll stay one night, learn more about your perspective. In the morning, we could decide next steps. Relief visibly washed over Lyra's features. We'll hunt for evening meal, she said, moving toward the cave entrance. Rest until return. With a powerful leap, she was gone through the waterfall, leaving Alera alone with her tumultuous thoughts. As twilight deepened outside, Alera explored the cave more thoroughly, this time with curiosity rather than desperate search for escape. The ancient paintings told stories she could partly decipher from her studies. Tales of Aryan creation myths, great migrations, battles, and unions. One recurring motif caught her attention. A winged figure and a ground-bound figure standing together, surrounded by concentric circles that appeared to represent harmony or protection. Was this the kind of union Lyra envisioned? By the time Lyra returned with fresh game, a mountain hare and some sort of high-altitude bird, Alera had 1,000 new questions. They prepared the meal together in a strange but companionable silence, communication happening through gestures and occasional words. As they ate by the light of the crystal lamps, Ilara finally asked, "How long had you been watching me before today?" Lyra considered for a moment, then responded, "For full moons. First saw you at lower teaching grounds, speaking our tongue to younglings." Ilara remembered the outreach program she'd established, teaching basic diplomatic phrases to Aryan children as a gesture of goodwill. "You were there, on high ledge, watching." Lyra's expression softened. "You gave sweet berries to smallest ones when they spoke correctly, showed patience when they struggled. They were eager to learn," Ilara said, somewhat embarrassed by Lyra's observation. "Children usually are, regardless of species." "Saw something then," Lyra continued. "Not just diplomat following orders. Someone who truly wished to build bridge." She set down her portion of meat. "Watched you many times after, learning our ways, respecting traditions, different from other humans sent before." Ilara hadn't realized her efforts had been so closely observed. The previous diplomatic missions failed because they approached your people as exotic curiosities or potential military threats. "I wanted to establish genuine understanding." "Yes," Lyra said simply. "This is why I claimed you. Not just for beauty or strength." Her amber eyes held Ilara's steadily. "For heart that sees truly." The compliment, delivered with such straightforward sincerity, caught Ilara off guard. Heat rose to her cheeks as she looked away, suddenly intensely aware of the intimate setting. The two of them alone in this hidden cave, sharing food by crystalline light. "In my culture," she said, trying to regain her professional composure, "romantic connections develop gradually, with mutual consent at each stage." "Different paths to same mountain peak," Lyra replied philosophically. "Aryan way seems abrupt to you. Human way seems incomplete to me." She tilted her head curiously. "How can hearts truly speak through polite meetings with others always watching?" It was a fair question, one that made Ilara reflect on the often stilted nature of human courtship, with its social conventions and guarded emotions. "We value the journey," she tried to explain. "Getting to know someone slowly, discovering compatibility over time. Mountains teach different lesson," Lyra said, gesturing toward the cave opening and the wilderness beyond. "Life is fierce, can end quickly. Wind changes in moment. Better to act on truth when felt." She leaned forward. "When sky calls to you, answer immediately, or chance may never come again." Something in this philosophy resonated with Ilara despite her reservations. How many opportunities had she let pass in her own life out of caution or convention? Their conversation continued deep into the night, ranging from personal beliefs to cultural differences to the state of human-Aryan relations. Lyra proved to be not just a fierce warrior, but a thoughtful conversationalist, once her initial reticence had faded. Her perspective on the world, shaped by a life in the skies and ancient traditions, challenged Ilara's thinking in unexpected ways. When exhaustion finally overtook them, Lyra arranged sleeping furs for Ilara at a respectful distance from her own resting place. The gesture of consideration was not lost on Ilara, who thanked her quietly before settling in for the night. Sleep came surprisingly easily despite the extraordinary circumstances, the constant sound of the waterfall creating a soothing backdrop to her dreams. Ilara awoke to morning light filtering through the cave and the scent of something sweet cooking. Lyra was already up, preparing a breakfast of mountain fruits and honey over a small fire. "Dawn greetings," Lyra said, noticing Ilara's waking. "Promised decision today. First eat." Ilara joined her by the fire, accepting a portion of the sweetened fruit. As they ate, Ilara studied Lyra openly for the first time. In daylight, her features seemed both softer and more defined. The proud angle of her jaw, the subtle shifts of her feathers that seemed to reflect her mood, the careful way she handled food despite her fearsome talents. "Your wing," Ilara noted. "How does it feel today?" Lyra extended it partially, testing the movement. "Healing. Your bindings helped. Good hands, gentle but firm." I'd like to check it before we make any decisions about leaving, Elara said. Injuries can worsen if not properly treated. Lyra submitted to the examination without protest, allowing Elara to remove the bandages and inspect the wound. The slash looked cleaner this morning, already showing signs of healing at a rate that would be extraordinary for humans. Your recuperative abilities are remarkable, Elara commented as she applied fresh salve. All Arions heal quickly, Lyra replied. Need to, living among mountain winds and predators. As Elara rewrapped the wing, she found herself appreciating its structure. The powerful musculature beneath the feathers, the intricate joint mechanisms that allowed for such precise aerial maneuvers. These were details no human research had adequately captured. I've been thinking about what you said, Elara said as she secured the bandage. About creating a living symbol of alliance through personal connection. Lyra remained very still, her eyes fixed on Elara's face. And it's unorthodox by human diplomatic standards, Elara admitted. But perhaps that's what's needed after generations of failed treaties. She took a deep breath. I'm not agreeing to a life bond. Not yet. That would be too sudden. But I am willing to explore the possibility of whatever this is between us, if you're willing to approach it more gradually. The light that sparked in Lyra's eyes was almost tangible. Would stay, not demand return to counsel. I propose a compromise, Elara said, her diplomatic training asserting itself. I need to send word that I'm safe to prevent a potential conflict. But I could request time to learn more about Aryan traditions, specifically this claiming ritual, as part of the peace process. Lyra considered this, her feathers shifting thoughtfully. How would send message? Do you have a way to communicate with the Aryan elders? Or could you deliver a message to my human colleagues? Can send wind caller bird with message to elders, Lyra confirmed. They would inform your people. Then let's do that, Elara decided. I'll draft a message explaining that I'm safe and engaged in cultural exchange. The euphemism made her smile slightly. I'll request 2 weeks before rejoining formal negotiations. 2 weeks to determine if this unprecedented approach to diplomacy and to personal connection had any chance of success. 2 weeks to better understand this fascinating, confounding being who had literally swept her off her feet. Lyra's wing gently brushed against Elara's arm, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as affection or emphasis. 2 weeks, she agreed solemnly. Then, with a hint of what might have been humor, added, we'll try not to claim you again without warning. Elara couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing pleasantly in the cave. I'd appreciate that, though I have to admit, your first impression was certainly memorable. Aryan way, Lyra said with undisguised pride. Make strong impressions. As they prepared the message to be carried by one of Lyra's trained birds, Elara reflected on the extraordinary turn her diplomatic mission had taken. What had begun as a terrifying abduction had evolved into something far more complex and intriguing. A cultural exchange at the most personal level, and perhaps the beginning of a new approach to peace between their peoples. Whether it would lead to lasting alliance or personal heartbreak remained to be seen. But for the first time in her diplomatic career, Elara felt she was truly bridging worlds rather than just negotiating borders. The bird, a magnificent mountain hawk with intelligent eyes, departed with her message secured to its leg. As she watched it soar toward the Aryan settlement, Lyra's wing extended partially around her, not quite touching but offering a sense of shelter. Now, Lyra said, her amber eyes bright with anticipation, show you real wind-scythe peaks, not as diplomat sees, as Aryan sees. I'd like that, Elara replied honestly, and as they prepared for their first intentional flight together, this time with Elara as willing passenger rather than captive, she realized that being carried off mid-sentence had forced her to begin an entirely new, unexpected story. One that might ultimately accomplish more for peace than any treaty ever could. For the first time since her abduction, Elara found herself grateful for Lyra's decisive action. Her Sheriel talk Vasrian. The claiming in the sky had disrupted everything she thought she knew about diplomacy, about Aryans, about herself. Perhaps some diplomatic sentences were better left unfinished, making room for new, more authentic beginnings.